Daeho Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished loading the last cargo container. The metal clanged against the dock floor of Nexus Station, echoing through the massive loading bay. He had been working for 12 hours straight, moving supplies from his ship to the storage areas. His back ached, but the pay was good, better than most jobs he could get as a human in this part of space. Nexus Station was huge. It floated in the dark between star systems, a place where different alien races came to trade. The station looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. Ships from dozens of worlds docked here every day. Some ships were sleek and silver, others looked like living creatures, and a few seemed to be made of pure crystal that caught the light from distant stars. Daeho had been coming here for 3 years now. He hauled cargo between human colonies and alien worlds. It was not exciting work, but it was honest. He got to see amazing things and meet strange beings from across the galaxy. Most aliens ignored humans. They thought humans were weak and boring. Daeho did not mind. It made his job easier when nobody paid attention to him. The loading bay was quieter now. Most of the other workers had gone to rest or eat. Daeho checked his watch. The next shift would start in 2 hours. He had time to grab some food and maybe watch the news feeds from Earth. He missed home sometimes, even though he had left years ago to see the galaxy. As he walked through the station's main corridor, Daeho heard a loud announcement in the alien trade language. He understood enough to know something was happening in the central arena. The arena was where important meetings took place. Sometimes there were ceremonies or demonstrations there. Daeho had never been inside, but he had heard about it from other workers. The corridor was getting crowded. Aliens of all kinds were moving toward the arena. Daeho saw tall, thin beings that looked like walking trees. Their skin was green and they moved very slowly. Behind them came a group of creatures that looked like giant insects. They clicked and buzzed as they talked to each other. Their black shells shined under the station's lights. A group of cloud-like beings floated past. They were made of gas and mist, and they glowed with soft blue light. Daeho could see through them, but somehow they were solid enough to carry small devices and communicators. They spoke in sounds like wind through leaves. Near the arena entrance, Daeho saw beings made of living crystal. They were beautiful and scary at the same time. When they moved, their bodies made musical sounds like chimes in a gentle breeze. Their faces were hard to read because they did not have expressions like humans did. The crowd was thick now. Everyone wanted to see what was happening in the arena. Daeho found himself pushed along with the mass of aliens. He was shorter than most of them, so he could not see much. The smell was strange too. Each alien race had its own scent. Some smelled like flowers, others like metal or electricity. A few smelled like things Daeho could not name. Before he knew, Daeho was inside the arena. It was a huge round room with seats going up in circles like an old Roman stadium. In the center was a flat area covered with some kind of metal flooring. Lights shined down from the high ceiling. The walls were covered with screens showing different alien languages and symbols. Daeho tried to find a way out, but the crowd had packed in tight behind him. The arena was filling up fast. Aliens were taking seats and floating in the air above, the ground level. Some were talking in excited voices. Others were silent and still, watching the center area with big eyes or sensor organs. Suddenly, red lights started flashing. A voice spoke in many languages at once. Daeho heard the human. Translation through his earpiece. Emergency protocols active. Arena lockdown in effect. All beings remain in current positions until further notice. The exit sealed shut with heavy metal doors. Daeho felt his heart beat faster. He was trapped. Around him, the aliens seemed nervous too. Even the big, tough-looking ones were moving restlessly. Some were making worried sounds. The lights in the arena changed from white to a deep red color. The center floor began to glow. Something was about to happen, and Daeho could feel that it was not going to be good. The air felt thick with tension. Every creature in the arena was watching the center floor now. A new voice came through the speakers. This one was deeper and more frightening. It spoke in a language that sounded like growling and metal scraping together. Daeho's translator struggled to make sense of it, but he caught words like trial, strength, and worthy. The crystal beings near him made worried chiming sounds. The tree-like aliens swayed back and forth like they were in a strong wind. Even the cloud beings seemed to pull themselves tighter together. Whatever was coming, every alien in the arena was afraid of it. Daiho checked his communicator. No signal could get through the lockdown. He was on his own until this was over. He looked around at all the frightened alien faces and wondered what could scare so many different kinds of powerful beings. In 3 years of working in space, he had seen aliens do amazing things. Some could lift huge weights. Others could survive in the vacuum of space. A few could even change their shape at will. If all these incredible creatures were scared, what was coming must be truly terrible. Daiho took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. He had been in dangerous situations before. During his time in Earth's military and later as a cargo hauler, he had learned to think clearly when things got bad. Panicking never helped anyone. Center floor began to rise up like an elevator. Something was coming up from below the arena. The red lights got brighter, and the air filled with a low humming sound that made Daiho's bones vibrate. Around him, aliens pressed back against the walls and seats. Some covered their eyes or sensor organs. Others made prayers in their own languages. Daiho stood his ground and waited to see what would emerge from below. He had nowhere to run anyway. The metal doors were sealed tight, and the arena was packed with scared aliens. All he could do was watch and hope that whatever was coming would not notice one small human in a crowd of frightened creatures. The humming got louder, and the floor platform rose higher. Soon, everyone in the arena would see what had caused this lockdown. Daiho gripped the rail in front of him and prepared for the worst. The platform reached the arena floor with a heavy thud that shook the entire stadium. What stepped off made every alien in the arena freeze in terror. Daiho had never seen anything like it, but he knew instantly what it was. This was a HFY, one of the most feared species in the galaxy. The creature was massive, standing nearly 9 feet tall. Its body was covered in black scales that looked like pieces of armor. 4 powerful arms moved with smooth, deadly grace. Its head was long and narrow, like a crocodile mixed with a shark. Rows of sharp teeth gleamed in its mouth when it breathed. Yellow eyes scanned the crowd with the cold focus of a perfect killer. The HFY wore simple clothing that showed off its muscular frame. Metal bands wrapped around its arms and legs. Strange symbols were carved into the bands, probably showing its rank or achievements. But the most frightening thing was how it moved. Every step was silent and controlled. This was a creature born to hunt and kill. Around Daiho, aliens were trying to make themselves as small as possible. The crystal beings dimmed their light, hoping not to be noticed. The tree-like aliens folded their branches tight against their bodies. The gas creatures compressed themselves into tiny clouds. Even the tough insect aliens backed away as far as they could. The HFY walked to the center of the arena floor. It moved in a slow circle, looking up at all the frightened faces in the crowd. When its gaze passed over sections of the arena, aliens actually fainted or fell over in fear. Some made whimpering sounds. Others tried to hide behind bigger creatures. Daiho watched the alien predator with the same attention he gave to dangerous machinery. In his years as a cargo hauler, he had learned to spot problems before they became deadly. This creature was definitely a problem, but Daiho found himself more curious than afraid. He had heard stories about the HFY, but seeing one in person was different. The creature's movement was too perfect. Every muscle worked together like parts of a machine. Its eyes never stopped moving, taking in every detail of its surroundings. This was not just a strong alien. This was evolution's perfect answer to the question of how to kill other living things. A new voice came through the arena speakers. This time, Daiho's translator worked better. The voice belonged to someone important on the station. Probably the Trade Council leader. Honored beings, we witnessed the worthiness trial of War Prime Thektos of the HFY First Hunt Pack. As per ancient custom, the War Prime will select a worthy opponent to demonstrate the superiority of his people before trade negotiations begin. All beings will remain seated until the trial concludes. Daeho understood now. This was not an attack, it was a ceremony. The Kethvar wanted to show everyone how strong they were before making trade deals. It made sense in a brutal way. If you were the most dangerous thing in the room, everyone would give you better prices and terms. War Prime. Thektos reached behind his back and drew a weapon that made several aliens gasp in terror. It was a blade, but not like any sword Daeho had ever seen. The metal seemed to glow with its own light. Energy crackled along the edge. The blade was nearly 4 feet long and looked like it could cut through anything. The War Prime held the weapon up high, and the arena's lights reflected off its surface in shifting patterns. He began to walk around the arena floor again, but this time he was hunting. His yellow eyes moved across the crowd like a scanner, looking for something specific. The aliens in the crowd became even more terrified. Some started making bargaining sounds, offering money or trade goods if they would be spared. Others tried to point at different aliens, suggesting that someone else would make a better opponent. Daeho realized that the War Prime was looking for someone to fight. The trial meant that some unlucky creature was about to become a demonstration of Kethvar fighting skills. Given how scared everyone else was, Daeho figured the fight would not last very long. The War Prime's gaze swept across the section, where Daeho stood. The crystal beings next to him actually started crying, making sounds like breaking glass. The tree aliens began to shake so hard their leaves fell off. But when those yellow predator eyes looked directly at Daeho, something unexpected happened. Daeho looked back. He did not scream or faint or try to hide. He did not offer bribes or point at someone else. He just watched the Kethvar with the same steady attention he had been giving it since it arrived. To Daeho, this was still an interesting problem to observe and understand. War Prime Thektos stopped walking. His forearms went still. His head tilted to one side like a confused animal. In all his years of hunting and fighting, he had never had prey look at him the way this small creature was looking at him now. The other aliens noticed the War Prime's strange reaction. Some looked at Daeho with a mixture of horror and amazement. They could not understand why the human was not running or begging for mercy. A few moved away from him, thinking that maybe the War Prime would only hurt the human and leave everyone else alone. But Daeho was not thinking about running or fighting. He was trying to figure out what made this creature tick. The War Prime was obviously built for combat, but there had to be more to it than that. No species became the top predator in the galaxy through strength alone. There had to be intelligence behind those deadly instincts. The War Prime took a step closer to Daeho's section of the arena. Then another step. The blade in his hands caught the light and threw red reflections across the walls. Every alien between the floor and Daeho tried to get out of the way. Daeho found himself at the front of his section, with nothing but empty air between him and the most dangerous creature in known space. The War Prime stood directly below him, now looking up with those terrible yellow eyes. For a long moment they just stared at each other. The War Prime seemed to be waiting for the human to do something normal, like scream or beg. Daeho was waiting to see what the alien would do next. Neither of them moved. The silence stretched out until it became uncomfortable. Other aliens started whispering to each other in worried voices. This was not how a worthiness trial was supposed to go. The chosen opponent was meant to show fear, then be quickly defeated to prove Kethvar's superiority. War Prime Thektos had defeated hundreds of opponents in trials like this. He knew exactly how each species would react when chosen. The insect races would charge in fury and be cut down. The crystal beings would try to blind him with light before being shattered. The gas creatures would attempt to surround and suffocate him before being scattered by his blade. But this small, soft creature with no visible weapons or natural defenses was just looking at him with calm interest. The War Prime's predator instincts were confused. His brain kept trying to categorize the human as either prey or threat, but the human's behavior fit neither category. Daeho noticed the alien's confusion and felt a small spark of understanding. The War Prime was not used to creatures that did not react with fear or aggression. Maybe that was something he could work with. In his experience, confused opponents made mistakes. and mistakes created opportunities. The question was, what kind of opportunity was he looking for? Deho was not going to win a fight against a 9-foot killing machine with an energy sword. But maybe he did not need to fight at all. Maybe there was another way to handle this situation. As War Prime Thektos raised his glowing blade and pointed it directly at the human, Deho made a decision that would change everything. Instead of backing away, he stepped forward to the edge of his section and looked down at the confused predator with something that might have been a smile. War Prime Thektos had hunted across a dozen star systems. He had faced creatures with acid blood, beings that could turn invisible, and monsters that breathed fire. But he had never encountered anything like this small human who was actually stepping toward him instead of away. The War Prime's grip on his energy blade tightened. His 4 arms moved into a fighting stance that had never failed him. But something was wrong. His predator instincts, which had kept him alive through countless battles, were sending mixed signals. This creature should be prey, but it was not, acting like prey. Deho looked down at the confused alien and started to think like an engineer. Every problem had a solution if you looked at it the right way. The War Prime was built for overwhelming attacks against frightened opponents. But what happened when the opponent was not frightened? The arena around them was dead silent. Thousands of aliens watched the strange standoff between the galaxy's most feared predator and a human cargo hauler who seemed completely calm. Some aliens were recording the event, thinking they might be watching something that had never happened before. Deho noticed that the War Prime's breathing had changed. The alien's chest was rising and falling faster now. Its yellow eyes were darting around more quickly. The perfect killer was becoming agitated because its prey was not following the script. This gave Deho an idea. He had spent years working in zero gravity and tight spaces. He knew how to move efficiently without wasting energy. More importantly, he knew how to work with his environment instead of fighting against it. The arena had environmental controls for different alien species. Deho could see the control panels built into the walls. As a cargo hauler, he had learned to read the basic symbols used throughout the galaxy. He might be able to change the conditions in the arena if he could reach those controls. War Prime Thektos decided to end this strange situation. He would leap up to the human's level and finish the trial quickly. But as he tensed his muscles to jump, something unexpected happened. The human disappeared. Deho had not run away. Instead, he had dropped down into the arena floor level through a maintenance hatch that most aliens were too big to notice. His years of crawling through cargo holds and ship ventilation systems had taught him to find spaces that others could not use. The War Prime spun around, looking for his opponent. The human had vanished like smoke. This had never happened before. In a worthiness trial, opponents were supposed to stand and fight, not disappear into the arena's infrastructure. Deho moved quickly through the maintenance tunnels under the arena floor. He had memorized the basic layout when he first arrived on the station. Most cargo haulers learned to navigate the hidden passages of any station they visited regularly. You never knew when you might need another way to get somewhere. He found what he was looking for: the arena's environmental control center. It was a small room filled with panels and screens that managed everything from air quality to gravity levels. Deho's hands moved over the controls with practiced skill. He had fixed similar systems on cargo ships dozens of times. Back in the arena, War Prime Thektos was becoming more confused and angry. The other aliens were whispering among themselves. Some thought the human had simply run away. Others wondered if this was some kind of trap. Suddenly, the arena's lighting changed. The harsh red combat lights shifted to a softer blue color. The War Prime blinked in surprise. Then the gravity began to fluctuate. Not enough to hurt anyone, but enough to make movement feel different and uncertain. Deho emerged from another maintenance hatch on the opposite side of the arena. He was still, calm, still watching the War Prime with that same analytical look. But now he had done something that no opponent had ever done before. He had changed the battlefield itself. The War Prime charged toward the human, his energy blade blazing. But the shifting gravity made his perfect movements clumsy. His timing was off. For the first time in his life, War Prime Thektos felt uncertain in combat. Deho dodged to the side and disappeared into another maintenance access. The War Prime's blade cut through empty air. The alien predator roared in frustration. This was not how battles were supposed to work. The environmental controls shifted again. Now the air circulation changed, creating small wind currents that carried different scents around the arena. The War Prime's sense of smell, which helped him track opponents, was overwhelmed by the mix of alien odors from the crowd. Some of the watching aliens began to understand what was happening. The human was not trying to defeat the War Prime through strength or speed. Instead, he was using the arena itself as a tool. He was turning the environment into an extension of his own capabilities. Deho appeared again, this time near a different control panel. His movements were economical and precise, like someone accustomed to working in difficult conditions. He activated a holographic display system that was normally used for trade presentations. Images began appearing in the air around the arena. They showed human achievements, cities built in impossible places, ships that could travel between stars, machines that could think and learn. But these were not meant to intimidate or threaten. They were meant to communicate. War Prime Thektos stopped his charge and stared at the floating images. He saw humans working together with other species, building things instead of destroying them. He saw human explorers discovering new worlds not to conquer them, but to understand them. The War Prime's database of known species listed humans as physically weak and technologically average. But the images showed something different. They showed a species that could adapt to any environment and work with any situation. They showed creatures that turned problems into solutions. Deho stepped out into the open arena floor. He was no longer hiding or running. The War Prime could easily reach him now. But something had changed in the alien's posture. The perfect attack stance had relaxed slightly. The yellow predator eyes were looking at Deho with something that might have been curiosity instead of hunger. For the first time since the trial began, War Prime Thektos lowered his energy blade. Not much, but enough that it was no longer pointing directly at the human. The watching aliens gasped in amazement. No one had ever seen a Kethvar warrior hesitate during a trial. Deho recognized the moment of opportunity. He had created a situation where the War Prime was thinking instead of just reacting. Now he needed to show the alien that there were other ways to resolve conflicts besides violence. He walked slowly toward the center of the arena, keeping his hands visible and his movements calm. The War Prime watched him approach but did not raise his weapon. Around them, the environmental systems continued their gentle fluctuations, creating an atmosphere that was constantly changing but never threatening. When Deho was close enough to the War Prime to see the details of his scaled face, he did something that surprised everyone in the arena. He sat down on the arena floor in a relaxed position and looked up at the towering predator with patient interest. The message was clear. He was not running, not fighting, and not begging. He was simply waiting to see what the War Prime would choose to do next. For the first time in his life, War Prime Thektos was facing an opponent who had turned the trial into a conversation instead of a battle. The arena held its breath as the most dangerous creature in known space stood over a sitting human and tried to figure out what to do with an opponent who refused to be an enemy. War Prime Thektos stared down at the sitting human for what felt like an eternity. His weapon trembled slightly in his hands, not from fear or exhaustion, but from complete confusion. In 3 decades of combat trials, no opponent had ever made him question what he was supposed to do. The alien crowds around the arena were equally stunned. Crystal beings hummed in harmonies that spoke of wonder and disbelief. The tree-like aliens swayed in patterns that meant they were trying to process something beyond their understanding. Even the gas creatures had stopped their constant movement and hung motionless in the air. Deho remained calm and patient. He had learned long ago that some problems took time to solve. The War Prime was not just a killing machine. There was intelligence behind those yellow eyes, and intelligence could be reasoned with. He just had to wait for the alien to work through its confusion. The holographic displays around the arena continued showing images of human cooperation and adaptation. Pictures of humans working alongside aliens in space stations, building colonies on hostile worlds and exploring the deepest parts of the galaxy. Each image told the same story. Humans were not conquerors or prey animals. They were something different. War Prime. Thektos began to pace around the sitting human. His movements were still graceful and deadly, but there was uncertainty in them. Now, he was trying to understand what category this creature belonged in. Predator and prey were the only classifications that made sense to his species, but humans seemed to fit neither. The environmental controls shifted again and Daiho smiled slightly. He had programmed them to create a gentle, ever-changing atmosphere that encouraged thinking rather than fighting. The lights grew warmer. The air circulation created a soft breeze and the gravity settled into a comfortable standard that worked for most species. From somewhere in the arena's control center, a new voice came through the speakers. This one spoke in clear human language and Daiho recognized it immediately. Daiho, this is Captain Sujin Lee from the Bright Dawn. We're monitoring your situation. Your vital signs are stable, and we're standing by to assist if needed. War Prime Thektos stopped pacing. His head snapped up toward the speakers, then back down to the human. He was hearing something that confused him even more. The human had allies who were concerned about his safety, but they were not rushing to rescue him. They trusted him to handle the situation himself. More voices joined the communication channel. This is Engineer Hyejin Park. Daiho, we're feeding you technical data about the station systems through your comm implant. Use whatever you need. Dr. Minseok Cho here. The HFY species profile indicates they respond well to demonstrations of intelligence and creativity. You're doing exactly the right thing. The War Prime understood enough galactic languages to follow the conversation. What he heard challenged everything he thought he knew about pack dynamics and species behavior. These humans were supporting their packmate not by fighting alongside him, but by giving him information and trusting his judgment. Daiho felt the data flowing into his implant. Detailed information about HFY physiology, psychology, and culture filled his mind. He learned that their species had evolved on a world where only the strongest and smartest survived. They respected power, but they respected intelligence even more. He also learned something interesting about their social structure. HFY warriors could choose to end a trial without bloodshed if they encountered something worthy of study, rather than conquest. It had not happened in over a century, but the option existed in their ancient laws. Standing up slowly, Daiho began to speak. His voice was calm and clear, carrying easily through the arena's acoustics. War Prime Thektos, I am Daiho Kim of Earth. I am not your enemy and I am not your prey. I am something your people have not encountered before. I am a human who solves problems instead of creating them. The War Prime's forearms shifted position. His grip on the energy blade loosened slightly. He was listening. Your people are the greatest warriors in the galaxy, Daiho continued. You have earned your reputation through strength and skill, but humans have earned their place in the galaxy through adaptation and cooperation. We do not seek to defeat you. We seek to understand you. Around the arena, aliens began to whisper among themselves. Some were using translation devices to follow the conversation in their own languages. Others were simply watching the body language of the two figures in the center of the arena. War Prime Thektos spoke for the first time since drawing his weapon. His voice was deep and rumbling like distant thunder. What are you, human? You are not strong enough to challenge me. You are not fast enough to escape me. Yet you do not fear me. Why? Daiho considered his answer carefully. Because fear is just another problem to solve. When I look at you, I do not see a monster or an enemy. I see a highly evolved being who has mastered the art of survival. I respect that. But I also see someone who might be interested in learning about a different way to survive. The energy blade in the War Prime's hands powered down slightly. The crackling energy along its edge dimmed to a soft glow. Different way? Humans survive by adapting to any situation and working with others. We turn enemies into allies and problems into opportunities. We explore instead of conquering. We build instead of destroying. We ask questions instead of assuming we know all the answers. Deho gestured to the holographic displays still floating around them. These images show what happens when humans encounter other species. We learn from them. We trade with them. We explore the galaxy together. We make everyone stronger by sharing what we know. War Prime. Thektos looked at the images with new understanding. He saw humans working alongside HFY warriors in some of the pictures, not as servants or masters, but as equals with different skills that complemented each other. You offer alliance? The War Prime asked. I offer friendship, Deho replied. Humans have learned that the strongest predator is not always the one who hunts alone. Sometimes the strongest predator is the one who chooses when not to hunt at all. The arena had become completely silent. Every alien was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. War Prime Thektos raised his energy blade high above his head, and for a moment it seemed like he might bring it down on the small human who stood calmly before him. Instead, he did something that no HFY had done in over 100 years. He powered down his weapon completely and attached it to his back. Then he extended one of his 4 hands toward the human, in a gesture that every species in the galaxy recognized as a sign of respect and peaceful intent. The arena erupted in amazement. Aliens cheered, whistled, buzzed, chimed, and made every kind of celebration sound their species possessed. They had just witnessed something that would be talked about across the galaxy for generations to come. Deho stepped forward and carefully shook the War Prime's massive hand. The alien's grip was strong enough to crush bones, but it was gentle and controlled. 2 very different species had just made contact, not as predator and prey, but as intelligent beings with something to learn from each other. War Prime Thektos, Deho said with a grin, I think this is the beginning of a very interesting friendship. The arena doors opened with a loud hiss as the emergency lockdown ended. But nobody moved. Thousands of aliens remained in their seats, staring at the impossible scene before them. War Prime Thektos, the most feared warrior in known space, was standing peacefully next to a human cargo hauler, and they were actually talking to each other. Deho could hear the excited chatter of dozens of different species around him. Translators were working overtime as aliens tried to explain to each other what they had just witnessed. Some were already recording messages to send to their homeworlds. This story would spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication could carry it. Your species interest me, human Deho, War Prime Thektos said, his deep voice carrying easily through the arena. In my database, humans are listed as a minor species with limited capabilities. But what I have seen today does not match that information. Deho laughed. Databases can be wrong. We humans have a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the bow. Fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. We might not be the biggest or strongest, but we're stubborn and creative. That counts for a lot. The War Prime tilted his head, a gesture that looked strange on such a deadly creature. Explain this saying. I do not understand the reference to dogs. Dogs are animals from our homeworld. Small ones can be just as fierce as large ones if they have enough spirit. The point is that determination and intelligence can overcome physical disadvantages. Around them, the environmental systems had returned to normal settings. The soft lighting and gentle air currents that Deho had programmed were gone, but somehow the arena still felt different. The oppressive atmosphere of fear had been replaced by something new, hope and curiosity. A new group of figures entered the arena from the main doors. Deho recognized Captain Sujin Lee leading a small delegation of humans. Behind her came Dr. Min Sok Cho carrying a translation device, and Engineer Hyejin Park with a portable computer for technical demonstrations. But they were not alone. A group of tall, elegant aliens in flowing robes followed them. These were the station's Trade Council members representing dozens of different species, and behind them came more HFY warriors, moving with deadly grace but showing no signs of aggression. War Prime. Thektos straightened to his full height as his fellow warriors approached. Pack Leader Morthak, he said formally, I request permission to propose a new type of alliance, The lead Kethavar was even larger than Thektos, with scars across his scales that spoke of countless battles. When he spoke, his voice was like an earthquake. War Prime, you have abandoned a worthiness trial. Explain. Thektos gestured toward Deho. This human has shown me that there are forms of strength we have not considered. They do not seek to dominate through force. Instead, they adapt and cooperate. They turn conflicts into partnerships. I believe we could learn from their methods. Pack leader Morthok studied Daiho with the same intense focus that Thektos had shown earlier. But this time, Deho was ready. He had learned something important about Kethavar psychology from his encounter with the War Prime. Pack leader Morthok, Deho said respectfully. Your people are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. No one disputes that. But what if I told you that humans could make your people even stronger without changing what makes you who you are? The pack leader's eyes narrowed. Speak. Deho nodded to engineer Hyojin Park, who activated her portable computer. Holographic displays appeared again, but these were different from the ones shown during the trial. These showed technical specifications and strategic analyses. Humans have developed technologies that could enhance Kethavar natural abilities, Deho explained. Better armor that moves with your bodies instead of restricting them. Weapons that respond to your reflexes faster than thought. Ships designed around your hunting instincts instead of against them. The displays showed Kethavar warriors using advanced human technology, but in ways that amplified their natural strengths rather than replacing them. The pack leader watched with growing interest. More importantly, Deho continued, humans could help Kethavar warriors find new kinds of challenges. There are mysteries in deep space that require both courage and intelligence to solve. Ancient alien ruins that need to be explored. Dangerous phenomena that threaten entire star systems. These are hunts worthy of the greatest predators in the galaxy. War Prime Thektos stepped forward. Pack leader, this human speaks truth. During our encounter, he demonstrated tactical thinking that challenged my abilities in ways I had never experienced. He turned the arena itself into a weapon, but not to harm me. He used it to communicate ideas that words could not express. The other aliens in the arena were listening to every word. The crystal beings chimed softly in approval. The tree-like aliens swayed in patterns that indicated deep thought. Even the gas creatures had formed themselves into more organized shapes, showing their attention and interest. Captain Sujin Lee stepped forward. Pack leader Morthok, I am authorized by the human colonial government to propose a formal alliance between our species. We offer technology, exploration opportunities, and most importantly, friendship between equals. Dr. Min-seok Cho activated his translation device and began speaking in the Kethavar language. His pronunciation was not perfect, but the meaning was clear. We do not seek to change your people or make them like us. We seek to learn from each other and grow stronger together. Pack leader Morthok looked around the arena at all the watching aliens. Representatives from dozens of species were witnessing this historic moment. Whatever decision he made would affect trade relationships and political alliances across the galaxy. Human Deho, the pack leader said finally. You have shown my War Prime something new. You have demonstrated that strength comes in forms we had not considered. This is worthy of respect. He paused and the entire arena held its breath. I accept the proposal for alliance, but not because humans are weak and need protection. I accept because humans are strong in ways that complement our own strength. Together, we will be greater than either species could be alone. The arena exploded in celebration. Aliens cheered, danced, sang, and made every kind of joyful noise their species could produce. The crystal beings created a light show that painted the walls in brilliant colors. The gas creatures formed themselves into celebratory spirals and loops. War Prime Thektos extended his hand to Deho again. Human friend, I have a request. When your people build ships for Kethavar warriors, I wish to serve on the first one. I want to learn more about this human way of solving problems. Deho grinned and shook the massive hand. War Prime, I think I know just the ship for you. We're always looking for good security officers on cargo runs. The pay isn't great, but you get to see the galaxy and meet interesting people. As the celebration continued around them, Ambassador Ji Woo-song arrived with a delegation of human diplomats. They carried documents and data tablets ready to begin the formal process of creating the alliance that would become known as the Nexus Accords. But for Dae-ho, the most important part was already done. He had started the day as a simple cargo hauler. Now he was standing in the center of galactic history, having proven that sometimes the best way to deal with a predator was to show them that you were not prey, but a potential partner. War Prime. Tektos looked down at his new human friend. Dae-ho, what will you do now that you have changed the galaxy? Dae-ho laughed and gestured toward the arena exits. The same thing I was doing before. I've got cargo to deliver and bills to pay, but now I'll have some very interesting company on the trip. As they walked together toward the arena doors, followed by cheering crowds of aliens, Dae-ho reflected on what had happened. He had not defeated the galaxy's greatest predator. Instead, he had done something much more important. He had made a friend. The human way of solving problems had just changed the course of galactic civilization, and it all started with one cargo hauler who looked at a dangerous situation and decided to understand it instead of running away from it. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly what humanity did best, making impossible things possible, one friendship at a time.